Hey, this is Mark, and this is episode 12 of the Why Are We Still Doing This podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend Ron Werth, a fellow stand-up comic, theater aficionado, and someone who was recently diagnosed with autism as an adult. I met Ron probably around 15 years ago, as we both performed stand-up comedy in my area and did many open mics together. I got in touch with him a few weeks ago because I follow him on TikTok, and he started talking about this journey that he's been on for a few months now of discovering how and why he does the things that he does and how his brain works, and just learning a lot about himself. And as a fellow stand-up comic, and understanding how the brain of a stand-up comic works and how exhausting it can be, I was intrigued. Also, unless you've been living under a rock, you may have noticed autism has been in the news as of late. And we talk about the science behind autism, growing old and thinking about why you did certain things as a kid, and realizing that there was nothing wrong with you to begin with. The percentage of stand-up comedians with autism, masking and what it means in the world of autism, preconceived notions and naive assumptions about people with autism, having a brain that's constantly on a loop, giving your body what it really needs, and ultimately trying to fit in with the world while at the same time not caring to fit in at all. If you're interested in following Ron's journey, you can do so on TikTok and on Instagram at This Is Ron's Life, all one word. This is Ron's Life. So I hope you all enjoy this, and here is Ron and I.
Okay.
So I feel like my generation, and I'm going to lump you in there because you're not that far off, has more self-awareness than the previous generations. And not to sound elitist, but I think we do. And what I mean is feelings are not suppressed. Our generation is letting go of social norms that are, I guess, somewhat antiquated or made up from when we were young, like boys don't cry. And with that, people our age are realizing things about their childhood and how that affects them as an adult. I know I am, or just in general, why I do the things I do. And I heard you mention that in one of your videos where you talked about, realizing why you do and did certain things. And again, you are an adult that recently was diagnosed with autism. And what made you sort of pursue all of this? What made you pursue this diagnosis?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have to say that it all started very innocently. I posted a video on TikTok in the beginning of August about a conversation that I'd had with a friend, a coworker, who was turning 50, and I turned 50 a little over a year ago. And we were talking about how it seems that when you get older, you reflect on the things that have happened earlier in your life, and you have this sense of wanting to figure out why exactly like you said, why you're the person that you've become. Um, and anyway, somebody commented on my post and said that they were neurodivergent. And I'm not totally sure why, but it made me start to wonder if maybe I was neurodivergent. So I started to Google it. And then this website called Autism, Embrace Autism came up. And they had a bunch of tests that you could take. And one of them it was all self-administered and had like 10 to 50 questions. And they were like these personality tests that you kind of take when you're like interviewing for a job, and there was this one called the RADS R test. And so I took it, and I scored 144 the first time that I took it. and the threshold for autism is above 65. Anything
Wow.
above 65.
Yeah.
So I took it again. I took it again recently, actually, just because I was
Yeah.
like, "Is this really true? Like, what's going on here?"
What
And I
did you
scored
score?
167. Yeah, I scored 167.
Maybe it
And
just
I
goes
was
up every time you're going to take it now. I don't know.
exactly. I'm afraid to take it again because they're going to be like, "You
They're
need to
just
go
be
to the
like,
psych
stop,
ward."
stop.
Stop it. You got it. Leave it alone. Um, so anyway, then I started like taking all of the other tests, and all the other tests said that I had it. And then I started watching like TikTok videos of late diagnosed people with autism, and it all just kind of ended up making sense to me.
Hmm.
And that's why I kind of wanted to pursue more of a formal diagnosis.
Sure. Um, I did read a little bit about that test, and it seems like it's pretty accurate for self-diagnosis. Is that
Hmm.
kind of what you've read too? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I've read and all like the TikTok videos that I've seen have been like, you don't even really need to get a diagnosis once
Sure.
you take that test
And
because it's pretty much it.
yep. And it's interesting, you would have probably never even thought of this if you hadn't been making videos, right? Because someone had posted on one of your videos. Is that correct? Is that what you had said?
Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
posted on one of my videos and said something about them being neurodivergent. And I mean, I've
Yeah.
kind of had it a little bit in the back of my head,
Hmm.
but never to really pursue it like this.
Sure. We'll talk about that a little more. I've got some questions here I
Yeah.
want to ask. But there's one thing that you had talked about a couple of times, and it's a term called masking. And I had never really heard of it before within this context. But so I think the video that I saw, you had talked about how you were once told that you can fit in anywhere, and
Hmm.
I feel like I was kind of always like that in high school. I remember like I would kind of fit in with like the jocks. I played sports, I played music, I did a lot of stuff. But do you think that is more of a trait of autism, or is it also a sign of someone being like a people pleaser? Because I think for me, for a long time, I kind of was.
Hmm. I think it could be used for both terms. I mean, I've always just thought of it as as a term of, I'm different, I'm gay, I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family of 5 kids and I was the only person that loved theater. Everybody else was a sports person and
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. And so, masking was just something that I did because I not that I had to hide who I was, but kind of.
Yeah.
I just wanted to fit in. And then when I learned about the autism, um, I discovered that there's an actual term for it called masking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you're right. I think people even outside of the spectrum mask for sure.
Yes,
Um,
and I think that it's kind of a shitty feeling to have. I think
mhm,
just in terms of when you said like not fitting into the world. And I think we all have a desire to fit in, especially I think when we're young. But as we get older, I feel like I'm hoping that we're more comfortable, about ourselves. We say, "Fuck it, I don't care what people think," and I try to convey that to my kids as much as possible in terms of like, if you like it, do it, and it doesn't matter what other people think. I know that's easier said than done sometimes, especially when you're like daughter's age and you're a teenager,
mhm,
um, and I try to say to them, and this is something I talked about in my last podcast about Comic Con, is that I'd rather be weird than be like everybody else, because I'll look at someone and be like, man, you have a boring life. Like you come home from work, you watch Fox News, you go to bed. But then on the other hand, and I know you've mentioned this, how my brain works sometimes
mhm.
is just exhausting.
Yep.
And so I want to park that for a second. But obviously, it's been in the news. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on what's been in the news lately with obviously RFK claiming that Tylenol could cause autism, obviously, despite what science says otherwise. And this is my thing. Like, people will look at him and be like, oh, he's an outsider. He's not one of these scientists with their scientific methods and those fancy medical degrees. He's a health nut. And I'm like, well, I get that, but that would be like bringing me, someone who likes cars but doesn't know how to change a timing belt, on a 20-year-old Toyota Camry, into the role of a service manager at a Toyota dealership. Like, I have an interest in the field, but I have no expertise, and so, and again, so like in the springtime, he had said, well, we're going to find an answer to this by September. And part of me is thinking, like, this guy, like, he's just going to roll up after decades of research and be like, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, for one, like, the arrogance, right? And two, I think it's a slap in the face to the people that have been working on this for years. So what are your thoughts on that? I know I said a lot there.
Hmm. um, I mean, I have to say that I think that it would drive me absolutely bonkers if I paid complete attention to it, and it would make me
Yeah,
really angry and mad.
I know.
And so I just try to, I kept saying these things. Obviously, the news came out last week or whatever, the week before, about this. And there was this one thing that I just keep seeing in my head that was like, autism was discovered in 1945.
Yeah.
RFK was born, I don't remember when, and
Hmm.
our Tylenol happened when, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Nope,
And
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
that.
and I'm just like, it's just all complete bull. And I just keep going to the back of my mind and just remember that we can't pay attention to these people that don't have any experience.
Exact.
Like
Yeah.
you said, it would be just like, it would be like me saying I could work on a car, which I definitely couldn't work on a car. Um, so I don't know,
So
but
I wanted to. I saw this meme
uh-huh.
and I thought it was really funny. So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah, no, you're fine.
it says, "My children are not on the autism spectrum because I took Tylenol while pregnant. They're on the autism spectrum because I, a person who will wear only one type of shoe and can't eat food that is, quote, too potatoey, had babies with a
Hmm.
man who has an encyclopedic knowledge of European um, aristocracy, but a limited ability to process social cues."
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, yeah, that sums it up in a comedic way, I guess. But I think you made a really good point in that it would drive you nuts if you paid attention to it all the time. And I have had to take myself out of that, and I've had to get off social media and obviously not let it consume me, but
Yeah.
also it's out of my control, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like one of the things that I'm learning about, I mean, I'm learning so many different things about, obviously, this is just fresh and new and it just happened, a couple months ago. But one of the things that I'm learning about my autism is that my brain goes in a loop. And so if I get too stuck on these things, it's like the TikTok algorithm. It
Mm-hmm.
knows exactly what you're thinking at that moment for some reason, and it shows you a million different
Yeah.
videos. And I'm just discovering that it's like getting on a roller coaster at Six Flags that never stops. And I
Yeah.
just have to, I have to turn it off. Like I have all of these different group text chains that people want to send every ounce of news from, God bless them, Aaron Parness and all of these people who are reporting on the news. And it's like every second is there's a school shooting or there's this or Donald
Yeah.
Trump is doing that or whatever. And it's all horrible.
Yeah.
But if we don't shield ourselves somehow,
Yeah.
we're just going to be miserable people.
Be lucky you don't have children that play travel sports, because then you'd be on like six different parent group
I
texts that are
could
just.
not do it.
I can't tell you how many times I come to my phone and there's 36 texts that I've missed, and it's all like, who's bringing the crock pot, which field.
Hmm.
So when you talk about being on a loop, is it more like just this information is constantly looping in your head, or is it like I'm trying to solve a problem here, like, and that's why it's on loop?
I think it's a lot of I'm trying to solve a problem, and it's a
Yeah.
lot of it, until I can get this resolved in my brain.
Yeah.
Um, I will think about it constantly.
Yep.
Um,
And I
and
think that
that's yeah.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I think that's like there's some science around when you get a song stuck in your head. It's because your brain. It's a lot of times it's a song that you don't know all the lyrics to, and your brain is
Hmm.
playing it on loop because it's trying to figure out what the missing pieces are.
Hmm.
So I don't know if
Hmm.
that's relatable or not, but I think when you talked about your brain working like that, it's a curse of creative people and
Yeah.
artists, and someone like you who's done stand up and theater interests and all that.
Hmm.
It's I think it's a curse of creative people in general.
Yep.
Unfortunately, because there's some times where I would love to just come home and be that normal person that can just like eat dinner, watch the news,
Hmm.
and go to bed. But there's 48 things going on in my head at all times. Um,
Absolutely.
I think for a lot of parents of children with autism, they want to know the root cause, right? And I don't know if it's so they can better understand it or put the blame on something. And I can totally empathize with their frustrations because my wife and I we had to terminate a pregnancy at close to 20 weeks because at the 18-week
Jeez.
ultrasound we found out that the baby didn't have any kidneys. And the baby would have only lived for a short while if it were delivered. And I remember consulting with the doctor um, about what to do. And one of the last things I said to him was, "How does this happen?" And he looked at us and said, "Sometimes these things just happen." And I think
Hmm.
sometimes an answer like that frustrates people, but also sometimes they think there's something more to it and they become skeptical. And, sometimes facts are boring. But if you
Hmm.
present it in a way where it makes people think, like Big Pharma's hiding something, it's going to make those people who are searching for a concrete answer start to believe in half truths or not follow up with legitimate sources. So, are you in that boat of trying to figure out how and why? And is that important to you? And at your age, in your mid 30s, I'm kidding. What does that change in your life? Does it change anything? Or is it just business as usual?
It's at my age, I don't really think there's any point in trying to figure out the how and the why. I will
Mm-hmm.
say that, it's all still so fresh and new. And I was thinking about doing this podcast and talking to you. And, you know, it's, I'm in therapy now, which is great. And I'm
Good.
loving it.
Yeah.
But it's like I go on with my week, and not every day now I'm thinking, oh, I have autism. You know,
Yes.
it's like, how much do I get on with my real life and then try to figure it all out?
Yeah.
Um, I think for me, the biggest thing is trying to figure out how I can support myself as best I can. I bought a whole bunch of fidget toys. I'm now realizing that I bite my nails because I'm
Yeah.
trying to regulate myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We've made it a decision not to have animals in our house because, as you know, we like to travel and go see theater and
Yeah.
things like that, and it would just be too difficult. So I bought myself a bunch of stuffed animals. One's
Yeah.
weighted, and it's supposed to be like a comfort thing for autistic people.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It,
and
it, it,
before that, I would have been like, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, is that a new thing? Like, I've obviously weighted blankets and stuff like that, but I don't know if I've ever seen. I talked about weighted stuffies, right? And like where you find those, because I don't think is that
Hmm.
kind of a new thing. Is that kind of a new
I don't
thing?
know. I mean, now, of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, now that I've got autism, I see these stuffed animals advertised everywhere.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
so I don't know if it's a new thing for adults or not, but I definitely see them advertised just everywhere.
Got it. And I think that if I was 19 and I had heard of an adult buying stuffed animals for themselves to snuggle, I think, yeah, that's kind of weird. But being 44 and understanding more of what I need and what my body needs, and realizing there are times when I'm like I need to step away from this situation, or I need this person out of my life right now, just like giving your body what it needs, in that moment or whatever, and treating yourself to stuff too. I used to hate treating myself when I was younger. It's kind of like that Seinfeld episode where George
Hmm.
goes to get a massage and he's like, I feel like I don't deserve it, you know? But now I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to go to Disney World by myself for 2 days.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to treat yourself. But speaking of creative people and how their brains are wired, what do you think the percentages of people in stand-up comedy with autism? Because I think it's pretty high. And if it's not autism, it's ADD or PTSD or some other acronym that means their brain is functioning a little differently than everyone else's, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really find any definitive research on it, but I know a lot of people, a lot of stand-up comics for sure, have a neurodivergent brain. I discovered this one
Mm-hmm.
comic named Rick Glassman right after I started this journey because, obviously, I love stand-up. He's autistic, and he did an episode of Soul Boom with Rainn Wilson, where I just kept seeing this clip of him like opening up about his autism, and then he was on this
Yep.
very short-lived show on Prime Video called As We See It, which was about a group of autistic people that live together. And then, of course, with comedy, there's Hannah Gadsby. And on TikTok, there's this couple called Darcy and Jer, and they do stand up together. And we went to see them a few years
Mm-hmm.
ago, and they were touring. And they speak a lot about their ADHD and their neurodivergence. And during their show, they were like carrying cue cards around to help them not get lost. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I
Hmm.
always thought that it was kind of unprofessional to like have your notebook up on stage with you. I don't know if that's just the way I've always thought of it, but
I don't know.
um
I Yeah,
and
no, I
that
don't know.
was obviously way before this diagnosis. But I remember that night thinking how
Yep.
awesome it was. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, I
All
can
right.
hear you now.
So, uh, what was I gonna say? All right.
We were talking about the cue card thing.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's a big issue. I would bring up cue cards, some index cards with bullet points on them on stage, and in general, as I've gotten older, I obviously don't do the amount of stand up I used to do. So, um, it's so much harder to get up there on stage when you haven't gone up there in a long time. So my
Mhm.
confidence is not there. That's because I don't do it as nearly as much as I did. But I want to talk about an experience I had. This was many, many years ago, but I had worked as a substitute teacher in a middle school starting, oh God, roughly 20 years ago. And one day I went in and they told me I'd be filling in for a paraprofessional who was a one to one for a student with autism. And
Mhm.
at the time, my knowledge of people with autism was very generic, very skewed, and I had no idea what to expect. I don't remember how the information was presented to me that day, really, but I was, in my mid 20s. I thought he was going to be like a major behavioral issue. That was my
Mhm.
first thought. However, going in, it was a wonderful experience. He was literally no different than any other of the students in the class. He followed expectations to a T, completed his work, was talkative to me. I was like, okay, there's like some varying levels of someone with autism. And again, I was in my like early 20s when I
Mhm.
did this. So do you think the stigma around the term autism has changed at all in the last 20 years? Because you made a comment about someone saying to you, oh, you don't look like you have autism, right? And I
Right.
feel like that's a very uneducated viewpoint, for one.
Yeah. I think that it really depends on who you talk to and what generation you're from. When I
True.
first just Yeah, I mean, when I first started discussing it publicly, I decided only to talk on my TikTok because all the people on TikTok are a lot younger, and I don't really
You
have a
don't
lot
say.
of yeah, yeah, and I don't really have a lot of real life friends who follow me on TikTok.
Sure.
Um, so it just felt like it felt safer to me to post on TikTok than it did on, like, for instance, my Instagram story, because everybody seems to see my Instagram story.
Got it.
Um, and you know, the whatever. So I decided one day to slowly start putting some of my autism videos on my Instagram story. And that's when this friend, who's slightly older than me, sent me a text. And he was like, I don't, and I don't think he meant any harm, but he was like, there's no way you're autistic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have this notion of people that are autistic being like nonverbal, or they can't be in
Yes.
society,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or they're all like the cast of Love on the Spectrum,
Yes.
which I absolutely love. And I think a lot of people think that it's a negative thing. But
Yeah.
from my perspective, and I said this to them, I think it's actually a positive thing because I get to know myself better now.
Absolutely.
And he came at it with the whole like, um, I don't think that's who you are, and blah 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 blah, and you act just like everybody else. And I was like, well, that's because I'm so good at the masking thing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I want you to see. I don't want anybody to think that I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point. And I said to him, obviously I'm very high functioning, and I should probably win an Academy Award for how well I hide it. Because I was so good at masking that I even hid it from myself.
That's funny. And I just thought of this recently about, and this goes back to our conversation about RFK and something he had said about, like, I'd never seen a grown adult with full blown autism. And I'm like,
Mm,
well, what the heck does that mean, first of all? Like, what does full blown autism even mean? Like, it's definitely
right.
not a scientific term. Like, what's the criteria for full
Hmm.
blown autism? I feel like it's when people say, "Oh, he's super gay." Like, what is the
Right.
criteria for that? What does that mean? It's very generic. Um, but I hate it when I say to people, I'm going to trust the science, and I get met with, well, you got to do your own research. Like, what does that look like? Um, when I think the vast majority of people who say that don't know how to conduct a scientific study. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't, but I think there's always some conspiracy. There's always some boogeyman for certain people. They're looking out for. We put people in certain positions because we trust they know what they're doing. We take our car
Hmm.
to a mechanic because we can't replace a catalytic converter ourselves. We call an electrician because, if we tried to get rid of old wiring, we'd probably burn the house down. We get on airplanes because most people can't afford their own plane, but more importantly, we trust the pilot that has years of schooling and will get us to our destination without crashing into the ocean. So we never really questioned any of that. So when you started on this diagnostic journey, like who did you listen to? Like, who do you trust to give you accurate information? And, like, who do you talk to now?
Yeah. I think, well, obviously, I trusted all of the tests that I took on that website, Embrace Autism, because
Mm
they were made by people that have studied autism and know how to do this diagnosis. I trusted when I was hearing from people on TikTok who had gone through the same kind of thing that I'm going through. And I think most importantly, I trusted myself,
hmm. Mm hmm.
um, which, as I mentioned earlier, there were signs. I'd experienced like these weird meltdowns. I remember as a kid, I'd go shopping with my mom and I'd get just way overstimulated. And I would end up like lying down on the floor of the department store and just crying.
Yep.
Um, or, when things get too complicated as an adult, I almost become like numb and feel like I'm having a heart
Mm
attack
hmm.
or a panic attack,
Mm
but
hmm.
it's really a panic attack.
Yeah.
To that point, a few times I've gone to the ER thinking that I was having a heart attack, and they were panic attacks.
Yep.
Um, and I've been on depression medicine, and I'm still on it. But the biggest thing that has given me clarity is the opportunity to say, "Hey, nothing was ever wrong with me. My brain just works differently than everybody else."
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's truly an important life lesson. Like my brain just works differently than everyone else. And I think for young people, it's important to understand that. And it's important to ask questions if you don't
Hmm.
understand something, because I was a shy kid and maybe didn't ask questions. And that was more of a confidence thing than anything. But then as I got older, I realized, wait, like these people are asking the same questions I would have asked. And I've realized that there are a shitload of clueless people out there. Maybe not clueless, but their brains don't function at the rate of someone like these motivational gym bros who are like, I wake up at
Hmm.
4:15 every day, I read a book at 2 times speed, then I meditate. I'm like, but then again, the lesson being is that everyone's brain works a little differently. But I found that the people who are really funny, like really smart humor and creative people, the way that their brain works is even more complex. But those are the people that I want to hang out with. And I think you brought up a good point in saying that people with autism, you said something like it's a strength, right? Or it
Hmm.
could be seen as a strength. Absolutely. I think just the way that your brain works, just that creative side, I think,
Yep.
that person could go on to create something special in this world. And I think a long time ago that might have been held back or not discovered
Yep.
because they were mislabeled as something completely different.
Hmm.
Your husband, what what's his response to a lot of this been? I assume he's probably
Yeah.
incredibly supportive. Um,
He is incredibly supportive. Yes.
yeah, no, that's awesome.
He is an extremely supportive person. He actually is a counselor, is an academic advisor at a university.
Oh wow.
And so, he's got that sociology brain and that very understanding brain. And I
Hmm.
think that's probably what I love about him. He's been very supportive of this. And I mean, it's still a journey trying to figure everything out and figuring out that, I need to say, hey, maybe I don't need to go to that party, or maybe we're doing too much this weekend, or, trying to figure out the boundaries of what I need to do to keep myself feeling safe and comfortable.
Yeah, as I think as people get older, and I've started to do this too. Like you run out, you have to say like, I don't have the capacity for anything else, you
Hmm.
know. And that could be anything from I know we were talking about maybe putting up a pool in my house at our house here,
Yeah.
and I remember I was like, I don't know if I have the capacity for this to take
Yep.
care of one more thing, for my brain to have to think about doing and taking care of one more thing between
Hmm.
all the other things that we have to do. And it's okay to say no, and it's okay to be like, that's just one more thing I cannot do right now. And
Yep.
I think that our generation is getting pretty good at that. So,
Yeah. No, I think we're getting much better. And it's just like, it's simple things like saying, okay, we're going to have a busy Saturday. I need to have no plans on Sunday,
hmm, yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
stuff
uh,
like, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Do you want to plug? Do you want to plug
You
your
know, I've
TikTok?
got no, I've got nothing to plug. If you want to find me, it's kind of great. I have nothing to plug, but if you want to find me, you can find me on TikTok at or Instagram or anywhere at This Is Ron's Life.
Yeah. Well,
Um, yeah,
that's what I was assuming, because when was the last time that you did any sort of comedy
gosh,
stand up? But
I did stand up like I've done it twice since I've been out here.
mm-hmm,
Maybe three times. And the last time it was before the pandemic.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's been a very long time. I often think, people are like, did you move out to LA to be in the business? And that was not my intention at all.
Yep.
So I just moved out to LA because I didn't want to live in the cold Berkshires anymore.
Not,
Um,
yep. Mm-hmm.
and I just, there wasn't much of a life for me in the Berkshires,
Sure.
unfortunately.
If you
Um,
if you were to get up on stage again, um, would your material be any different nowadays? I mean, because I know watching your TikToks, it's a lot about your recent, sort of discovery about who you are and why you did this certain things the way you did, and I assume maybe it might go in that direction if you got on stage again.
I would think it would go in that direction. I keep
Yeah.
thinking about, how we used to do stand up, and there was a joke that I did that it was probably the first joke that I ever wrote. And
Hmm.
it was this story about I've been a chef before, and I was working at an old folks home. And the
Yep.
first day that I started working at this old folks home, this woman came up to me and she said, "I think it's so great that they let people like you work here."
What the hell?
And it was every time I've done stand up, I've done that joke, and it's like the funniest thing ever. And
Well,
now
okay. Go ahead.
and I would say, "Hi, I'm Ron. I'm your new like head chef." And she just kind of was like, "Oh, well, thinking that I would be like the dishwasher or something." And so at the end of the joke, I would always tag it with, "I don't know what's more messed up, that you guys got that joke or that she said it."
Yeah. What was your response to her? Did you?
I don't actually remember even what I said to her. I
Uh-huh.
remember her looking at me, and I think I might have said something about me being the head chef.
Yep.
But I often think now that I would tag that joke with, clearly she knew something I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know.
Wow, that's funny. Oh my God. That's really funny. I don't know what anybody's
Yeah.
response to that would be. It's nice that they let people like you work here.
Uh huh.
I don't
Uh
know.
huh.
That's like one of the worst things you could say to someone.
You're like, these old people have dementia and they would say anything.
Well, true. Yeah.
I mean, this was another one of the jokes that I would always say. I went into the dining room one day and this guy was like, "I think you need to go back to that culinary school you went to and get your money back."
Wow.
Um, and,
Which you
you
went to
know,
culinary school?
I did. I went to the Culinary Institute of America.
Okay. Where's that?
That's in Hyde Park, New York.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I think that's a classic example of, you go to school, our generation going to school for something and ending up in a profession not related to what they went to college for. I went to school.
Absolutely.
I went to school for music. I
Hmm.
work in a public school as a social work position. So yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
so oh my
Yeah.
God, that's funny.
But no, I do think my comedy would probably be about autism and about, just
Yeah.
everyday life. I mean, I think obviously the funniest comedy is stories from things that happen to us.
Absolutely. I enjoy your TikTok page because you're not trying, you don't need to try very hard. You're just talking. You sound exactly the way as we're talking now, and it's
Hmm.
real, and that's, I think, obviously where people are going to connect, and
Yeah.
your humor's, fairly dry, and
Hmm.
it connects because it's real.
Yep.
Um, you know, when you put those together, are you writing out what you're going to say
You
normally?
know, there was a while there
Do you have
where
a
I was like,
script?
and yeah, there was a while there where I was like, okay, I want to write like a premise and a punchline.
Yeah.
But, and I did that for a little while. And then finally I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this?
Hmm.
Um, and I would stop doing it. So I haven't actually been writing them out recently, but I do find that, especially with the autism, that it's better for me to write them out, because it's a lot less, because the way my brain works, I think about, and I think this is kind of what makes them funny, is I'll be saying one thing and my brain will go in a different direction,
Yeah.
and I'll just start talking about something else random.
Hmm. I th-
Um,
I think the great thing about TikTok is that I think initially it's all about fart jokes and
mhm,
fails and cat videos, but somewhere along the way, people are going to find something that they really emotionally connect with on a deep level. Like, I find myself getting a lot of videos regarding childhood trauma
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or issues with boomer parents, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm getting a lot of that in my in my TikTok feed. But again, I feel like it's not all fart jokes and
No.
cat videos. You ultimately are going to find your way down some rabbit hole and find something that you really connect with. And I feel like your page is, is one of those where talking
Thank
about
you.
what is going on in your life now is ultimately going to open a door for someone who's feeling the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And being like, yeah, it's okay to give my body what it needs right now. It's okay to know that what I did in the past was not wrong. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't, you know, doing something wrong. I was just doing what I my brain was going on in my brain at the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of when the last time I saw you. I think it was we did
I mean,
some
it had to
sort of.
be a Rumpy's. Yeah.
I no, I think it was a Best of the Berkshires comedy show that Tom put on
Oh,
at
yeah.
I think the hotel, and it was me, you,
Yeah.
Seth Brown. I think you
Yep.
hosted, and
I think I did.
there was
Wasn't Rain prior there or something?
no, that was maybe a couple years earlier, and that was at the Crown
Okay.
Plaza.
Yep.
And I wasn't on that show, but this one, I remember the headliner. I don't know who it was. It was someone from outside Berkshire County, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember their closing bit was something about the 99 and having 99 reasons to love the 99, and he was going through all these obscure reasons that the 99 had, and they were just the most ridiculous things. You could tell by like
Yep.
the 99 got up to about 50 things, and they were like, oh, I don't know, they didn't know what else to say. They were just making
Mm-hmm.
stuff up off top of their head to why to
Yep.
come to the
I remember. I
99.
do remember that now.
Okay.
And I remember the 99 in Pittsfield. I would go with one of my friends.
Yeah, it's funny. Between that and Applebee's, I'm usually going to go to the 99. My parents like the
Uh-huh.
99, but I'm not like usually a big, chain restaurant guy. But if given the choice, I'll probably go to uh 99.
Is it
So yeah.
is the 99 still there?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Still
Oh,
there. It was funny because a few years ago, I had my first comedy show back. Um, in about 3 years, and I remember it was in Pittsfield, and
hmm
afterwards my wife and I were like, let's go out for a drink. This is at 10:30 on a Saturday night, and literally like one of the only places open was Applebee's in Pittsfield,
that's
and
crazy.
it was every demographic you could imagine at that time. You
I
had
bet.
the high school kids, you had the construction worker guys, you had the one lonely old guy at the bar. You had, the thugs. You had it was just it was just Thanksgiving people watching. It was just
Hmm
a platter of people watching. It was hilarious, and it was the only place to get a drink at that time a night in
That's
Pittsfield.
crazy.
So yeah,
That's Pittsfield, though. Huh?
it is. It is. Well, thank you so much. I would love to do this
Of
again in
course.
some capacity, and
Sure.
I absolutely.
All right.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks, Mark. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
You too.